The Duke didn't tip the waitress, but the note hidden under the plate surprised her. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The smell of broth and garlic clung to the air of the little trattoria, heavy as the winter outside. Raffaella moved between tables with a practiced balance, 3 plates on each arm, her shoulders aching but steady. 2 more soups for the men by the window, called Signor Bellini from behind the counter. And smile, ragazza. A sad face makes the food taste worse. Raffaella forced a quick smile he could not see and rushed to the steaming pots. The kitchen boy ladled soup into chipped bowls. She lifted them, feeling the heat through the thin ceramic. "If the food is hot, no one will look at my face," she murmured. "What?" the boy asked. "Nothing, just talking to the soup." She crossed the room, sidestepping a chair someone had pushed too far back. The trattoria was crowded tonight. Workers in wool coats hunched over their plates, shaking off the damp cold outside. A merchant counted coins beside his plate. Every clink made Raffaella think of medicine, of rent, of her mother's cough. She set the bowls down. One of the men grunted. "Finally," he said. "I thought I'd starve before my soup crossed the room." "Forgive me, signore," Raffaella replied gently. "We only have 2 hands each." "Some have quicker hands," the other man said with a smirk, "but those are not for soup." They laughed. Raffaella smiled because it was safer that way and moved on. At the counter, Signor Bellini watched the room with the possessive gaze of a man who knew every loose board and every regular face. He wiped his hands on his apron as she approached. "You are late again," he said quietly. "Your mother?" "She had a bad night," Raffaella replied. "I had to make sure she could breathe before I left." "Doctors do not wait," he reminded her, "and landlords do not forgive." "I know." "Work then, work and pray. The rest is for saints." She nodded, took another tray and kept moving. The door opened with a gust of cold. A hush passed over the room, almost too slight to name, like a breath held. Raffaella glanced up. A man stepped in, tall and straight, his coat too finely cut for the trattoria, his boots too polished for the muddy street. The candlelight picked out the smooth line of his jaw, the neat dark hair, the reserved eyes that seemed to weigh everything without liking any of it. A murmur moved between a few tables. "The Duke of Bardi," whispered the merchant, leaning toward his neighbor. "What is he doing here?" another man muttered. "He has cooks of his own, no?" "Perhaps he lost his palace and must eat with the rest of us," a third joked. Laughter rose, then dropped again, as the Duke's gaze swept the room. It was not a warm gaze. He looked at people the way a man looks at a street he must cross. Necessary but uninteresting. Signor Bellini straightened his apron and stepped forward, bowing a little too low. "Your Grace," he said, his voice a mixture of pride and nerves. "It is an honor. We did not expect such a distinguished guest." "I did not expect such cold," the Duke replied. His voice was low, with that calm tone of someone used to being heard. "May I sit there?" He indicated a small table in the corner, away from the draught but near the wall. From there he could see the whole room. Of course," Bellini said, waving Raffaella urgently. "Raffaella, you will see to his grace. Do not spill anything, I mean it." The Duke sat, his movements precise, unhurried. He removed his gloves and placed them on the table. He did not look at Raffaella as she approached. "Good evening, Your Grace," she said, trying to make her voice steady. "What may I bring you?" He glanced up briefly, as if he had just remembered that food did not appear on its own. "What do you have that is hot and simple?" he asked. "I do not want to wait long. A vegetable soup, fresh bread, roasted chicken with herbs," she replied. "And a little wine, if you wish." "That will do," he said. "The soup, bread, and the chicken. Little wine." He did not ask the price. He did not ask her name. He looked away again, scanning the room. Raffaella noted the sharpness of his profile, the faint line between his brows. There was no curiosity in him, no warmth. She nodded and left without another word. In the kitchen, the cook's eyes went wide. "The Duke? Here?" he hissed. "Madonna, I hope he likes the soup. I did not put any gold flakes on it. He only wants it hot and simple," Raffaella said. "Like any other man." "Like any other man, but able to shut us down with a gesture," the cook muttered, ladling soup with more care than usual. "Take this, and tell him it is the best in Florence." She carried the soup back, the tray steady. The Duke sat with his hands on the table, his fingers perfectly still. For a moment she wondered what it felt like to have hands that did not smell of onions and soap. "Your soup, Your Grace," she said. He inclined his head slightly, almost a nod. She set the bowl down and stepped back. The room's noise rose again, but quieter near his table. Men glanced at him, then looked away quickly when he shifted in his seat. The merchant near the door leaned toward his friend. "How much do you think he pays for such a coat?" he whispered. "More than you have seen in a year," the friend replied. "A man with so much," the merchant said softly, "must feel very full." Rafaela passed them and pretended not to hear. Full, she thought. Full of what? Money, duties, boredom. She watched the Duke out of the corner of her eye. He ate slowly, without haste but without pleasure. He tasted the soup, the bread, the chicken, as if checking that they were what they claimed to be, nothing more. His gaze slipped over her once when she refilled his cup, and she felt it like a quick, cool draught. Not unkind, not kind, simply distant. "Does he smile at all?" whispered the kitchen boy when she passed by him. "I do not think his mouth knows how," she replied. Bellini appeared beside her. "Ask him if everything is good," he said. "If he is pleased. Nobles like to be asked." She obeyed. She approached the table again. "Your Grace," she began, "I hope the food is to your liking." "It is fine," he said without looking up. "Thank you. Would you like anything else?" "No." His voice was not harsh. It was simply final. Rafaela swallowed the small reply that rose in her throat and stepped back. He finished his meal, dabbed his lips with the cloth and reached into his coat. He placed coins on the table with careful precision. No more, no less, the exact price Bellini had written on the little slate behind the counter. He stood. He put on his gloves. He did not look at Rafaela, who stood a few steps away ready to take the empty plate. He walked out and the cold air rushed in again, then closed behind him. No tip. No extra coin for the girl who had brought his soup, his bread, his wine, and spent the whole evening on her feet. No acknowledgement of her quick service or careful manners. Nothing. "Well?" Bellini hurried over to the table, eyes on the coins. "What did he leave?" Rafaela counted. "The exact price, signor." Bellini's mouth twisted. "Of course," he muttered. "Those who have much give least. The poor leave a coin when they can. The rich leave a shadow." He scooped up the money. "Do not stand there dreaming. Take the plate. Clean the table. The Duke will not remember you in an hour." Rafaela nodded, though a small knot of hurt had formed in her chest. She had known better than to expect kindness. Still, she had imagined for a foolish second that someone with so much could spare a single coin, a single word, a single look. She reached for the plate. It did not move at once. Something held it back, a tiny resistance against the wood. She frowned and lifted it more carefully. Underneath, folded exactly in the center of the circle where the plate had rested, lay a piece of paper. It was folded with care, the edges even, the crease sharp. Rafaela froze. Bellini had already moved away, shouting at the kitchen boy to stop burning the bread. No one was looking at her. She slid the plate onto her tray and, with a quick motion, slipped the folded paper into the pocket of her apron. Her heart beat faster. She walked to the kitchen, set the plate in the basin. "More dishes," the cook grumbled. "I will wash them," Rafaela said automatically. She did not wash them, not yet. She dried her hands on her apron and felt the small, stiff rectangle pressing against the cloth. Was it a complaint? A message to Bellini, perhaps, about the food, the service, the state of the tables? Nobles sometimes played strange games. Some left notes instead of words, preferring ink to human faces. In the narrow corridor between the kitchen and the back door, there was a small unused pantry. 2 sacks of flour leaned against the wall, and a broken chair sat in the corner. No one was there. Rafaela slipped inside and pulled the door almost closed. Shadows wrapped around her, but a thin line of light came from the gap, enough to see by. She took out the paper and stared at it. She should not read it. She knew that. It might not be for her. It might be for the owner, for someone higher, for someone whose hands did not smell of dishwater. But he had left it under the plate she had carried. On the table she had cleaned. He had spoken no word, given no sign. The note was the only thing that suggested he had thought of anything at all, besides his own hunger. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. The handwriting inside was elegant, but rushed. The ink had blotted slightly in places, as if the writer's hand had not stopped long enough for the letters to dry. To whoever finds this, I write in haste, because I have no one I can trust. Rafaela's breath caught. She read on. You may know my name. It does not matter now. What matters is that within the walls that should protect me, I suspect eyes and ears that are not my friends. I do not know if my servants are loyal. I do not know if my own blood wishes me well. I do not know who reads what I write or hears what I say. If you have found this, it is because you served me. That alone tells me something about you. You work, you carry plates, you offer food while others speak of politics. You are not invited into drawing rooms to hear plans, and that is why I dare trust your hands more than those who bow to me with smiles. There are those who wish to see my place, my name, my inheritance taken from me. I believe they are prepared to go further than words. I cannot write all I know here. It would be dangerous for you and for me. Please keep this paper. Do not show it to anyone. If anything should happen to me, show it to a priest you trust, or to a lawyer who is not afraid of great names. Tell them the Duke of Bardi feared for his life and his rights, and that he sought help where no one would think to look. If nothing happens, if I am wrong, then burn this one day and forget you ever saw my name. If I am right, this note may save more than my own skin. Forgive the burden I place on your shoulders. I have nowhere else to place it. L.B. The letters at the end were smaller, tighter, as if his hand had finally run out of time or patience. For a moment, the world shrank to the small scrap of paper between Rafaela's fingers. The noise of the trattoria faded to a dull hum. The cold draught under the door, the smell of soup, the clatter of cutlery all fell away. He was afraid. The Duke of Bardi, with his perfect coat and distant eyes, was afraid, not a little uneasy, not annoyed, afraid. Rafaela read the note again, more slowly, trusted her hands more than those who bowed. Fear for his life, fear of his own blood. Her throat felt dry. Why leave this here? Why under a plate, in a place filled with strangers? Why with someone he refused to even see? She pictured his face again, composed, almost bored. Had there been something else in his eyes? Had she missed it? Someone knocked on the pantry door. Rafaela, the kitchen boy called. Where did you go? Signor Bellini is looking for you. The table near the door needs cleaning. I am coming, she said quickly. She folded the note again, smaller this time, and slipped it inside her dress above her apron, where the cloth pressed against her skin. Her heart beat hard beneath it. She stepped back into the light of the corridor. The kitchen boy glanced at her. Why are you so pale? He asked. The flour sacks frightened me, she said. He laughed and ran off. Rafaela returned to the main room. The din rushed back at her. A man waved for more bread. Another called for the bill. The merchant by the door complained that his wine was too sour, though he finished it anyway. Where did you disappear to? Bellini asked, appearing at her elbow. I went to wash my hands, she replied. Well, now use them. The table by the door, and then check the fire. We do not want the room to turn as cold as outside. She nodded and moved quickly, grateful for the work that gave her something to do besides think. But thinking came anyway. The note burned in her memory. You are not invited into drawing rooms to hear plans. He was right. No one invited her to hear anything. She heard enough from the edges of conversations, though, enough to know that wealth did not protect anyone from fear, enough to know that family could be kind and cruel in equal measure. What did he want from her? Nothing, perhaps. He had asked her only to keep the paper, to say something if something happened to him. She swallowed. More bread? Called one of the men. Yes, signore, she said, moving to the basket and filling it. She imagined he would never come back. Maybe this had been a strange impulse, born of fear and loneliness. He might dine in his palace for the rest of his life and forget the little trattoria and the girl who carried his soup. She wished she could forget the note so easily. The night wore on. One by one the tables emptied. Men buttoned their coats and pulled their scarves tight, bracing against the cold outside. Bellini counted coins with a miser's concentration. The cook yawned and declared he would sleep standing up if they did not close soon. We will have no more customers at this hour, he said. Not unless they are mad or frozen. Or both, muttered the kitchen boy. Raffaella wiped the last table near the window, her cloth moving in small circles. Her hands worked, her mind whispered. Keep this paper. Do not show it to anyone. Raffaella, after we close, sweep the floor, Bellini said. Your brother is not here to help, so you are all I have. I know, she answered. I will do it. She straightened, flexing her fingers. Then the door opened. Another gust of cold flooded the room. The candle flames flickered. Raffaella turned. A man stood in the doorway, his coat dark, his hat pulled low against the night. He paused, letting his eyes adjust, then stepped inside. He was not as elegant as the Duke, but his clothes were still finer than those of the usual customers. His gaze moved slowly from table to table, as if looking for someone specific. Bellini's expression shifted into a polite mask. Buonasera, signore, he called. We are about to close, but we can still serve something warm. The man did not answer at once. His eyes swept the room and rested on the corner where the Duke had sat earlier. Then they moved, unhurried, and stopped on Raffaella. She felt the weight of that look settle on her like a hand. The stranger's eyes swept the room and rested on Raffaella, as if he had chosen her for a question she was not ready to answer. The stranger took a few steps into the trattoria, letting the door swing shut behind him. The room felt smaller with him in it. He removed his hat, shook a bit of moisture from the brim, and looked around again. Buonasera, he said at last. His voice was polite, but there was something careful in it. Am I too late for a glass of wine? Bellini relaxed a little and smiled. For wine it is never too late, he replied. Please sit. We are closing soon, but a glass is nothing. The man chose a table near the door, not far from where the Duke had sat earlier. He sat sideways so he could see both the room and the street beyond the window. Raffaella, Bellini called. One glass of red for the gentleman, the good one, not the rat poison. The man chuckled quietly. Nothing too fine, he said. I am not a duke, after all. Raffaella's hand tightened on the cloth she was holding. She glanced at him, but his face was unreadable, ordinary in its regularity, yet his eyes stayed sharp. She fetched the wine, poured it, and carried the glass to his table. Your wine, signore, she said. Thank you. He accepted it, but his gaze held hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Busy night? As busy as cold can make it, she answered, trying to sound light. He took a slow sip. I heard, he said casually, that your trattoria serves anyone. Workers, merchants, even nobles. Bellini, who was wiping a table nearby, laughed. We do not choose who is hungry, he said. If a prince comes for soup, we give him soup. If a baker comes, he gets the same spoon. The man nodded. A duke, then? He asked. Did you have one tonight? Bellini's chest puffed a little. The Duke of Bardi honored us with his presence, he replied. A quiet man. Ate, paid, left. No trouble? The stranger asked. None, Bellini said. We serve food, not politics. He seemed thoughtful. The stranger's eyes drifted back to Raffaella. You served him, he asked her. She hesitated. Yes, she said. He wanted something hot and quick. And? Was he polite? The question was simple, but his tone probed. Raffaella swallowed. He spoke little, she said, but he said thank you, and left. The man tilted his head. Did he leave anything else? Her heart skipped. His plate, she replied, forcing a thin smile, and the coins. He smiled as if she had made a modest joke. Of course, he said. Forgive me, I am curious. I work sometimes near Santa Croce. There is talk of the Duke, of his movements. When I heard he had been seen in this street, I wondered if he had sent a message through someone. A letter, perhaps. Nobles like letters. Bellini snorted. If he has messages, he has his own people, he said. We are for stomachs, not secrets. The stranger kept his eyes on Raffaella. You saw no letter? He asked softly. Her tongue felt thick. For a heartbeat, she considered telling the truth, handing over the note, letting this entire strange weight slip from her shoulders. But she saw again the lines of fear on the page, the hurried letters, the words, I have no one I can trust. No, signore, she said. I saw no letter. The man studied her face for a moment, then nodded, as if satisfied. Well then, he said, perhaps I was misinformed. He drank the rest of his wine slowly, watching the street rather than the room. When he finished, he stood up and put a few coins on the table, more than the price of the wine. "For the glass," he said. Then he glanced at Rafaela again. "And for the service." His eyes held a question he did not voice. Then he put on his hat, wished them good night, and left. When the door closed behind him, Bellini exhaled loudly. "Too many fine coats tonight," he muttered. "I prefer the smell of sweat. It is simpler. Who was he?" "I do not know," Rafaela said. "Did he say his name?" "No." "Well, if nobles begin sending us their shadows, I expect them to pay for meat next time," Bellini said. "Enough of this. Clear the last tables, then sweep. I want to see the floor before I see my bed." Rafaela nodded and worked until the chairs were upside down on the tables and the floor was clean. Her hands moved quickly. Her mind stayed on the two men who had come that night, one who said nothing and one who asked too much. When Bellini finally waved her away, she untied her apron and stepped into the street. The cold wrapped around her at once. She pulled her shawl tighter and began the walk home. The streets were quieter now. A few lanterns burned low. A patch of laughter drifted from a distant tavern. Her shoes tapped softly on the stones. She walked fast. The note lay warm against her skin. At the corner where the street narrowed, she paused and looked back. No one followed. Still, she quickened her pace. Her building was old, with a door that stuck in the winter. She pressed her shoulder against it, then slipped inside and climbed the narrow stairs. Each step creaked, but the sound was familiar, almost comforting. At the top floor, she pushed the door open softly. "Mama?" she called. "I am here," a weak voice answered. The room was small, but neat. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, a stove that gave more smoke than heat. Her mother lay propped up on thin pillows, her dark hair streaked with grey, her eyes bright, despite the tiredness around them. "You are late," her mother said. "Long night?" "Too long," Rafaela replied, setting down her shawl. "How do you feel?" "Like a woman who has lived enough winters," her mother said with a faint smile. "Do not frown. Come, tell me. Did you serve kings tonight?" "Almost," Rafaela said. "The Duke of Bardi came." "The Duke?" Her mother's eyebrows rose. "In our Bellini's little trattoria? Did he get lost?" "Perhaps he followed the smell of soup," Rafaela said, trying to sound light. "He ate, said little, paid, and left." "And did he tip you like a fairy in a story?" her mother asked. Rafaela hesitated, then laughed once. "No," she said. "He did not." "Ah." Her mother's smile turned rueful. "These men with full pockets and empty hands. Never mind. Sit. Eat something. There is a little bread left." Rafaela broke the bread and chewed, though she was not hungry. Her mother watched her closely. "You are troubled," she said. "Only tired," Rafaela answered quickly. "You were born tired," her mother teased gently. "But this is different. What is it?" Rafaela touched her chest lightly, feeling the outline of the folded paper. "Nothing you need to worry about," she said. "Just something strange." Her mother coughed, a dry sound that made Rafaela flinch. "Strange things do not come to our door often," her mother said when she could speak. "When they do, they usually want money. Or they want to leave it," Rafaela said, before she could stop herself. Her mother tilted her head. "Money?" she asked. "Not money," Rafaela said quickly. "A message. The Duke left a note under his plate." "And you found it," her mother said. Her eyes sharpened with interest. "What did it say?" Rafaela frowned. "I should not have read it," she murmured. "That is not what I asked," her mother replied. "It was not for me." "Did his name sit on it?" "Yes." "And you touched it with your fingers anyway." "You have committed the crime already," her mother said softly. "At least tell me what sin you have gained from it." Rafaela hesitated, then sighed. "He is afraid," she said. "Afraid of someone close to him. He thinks someone wants to take his inheritance. Maybe more." Her mother stared at her for a long moment. "And he wrote this on a little piece of paper under a plate of chicken?" she asked. "Yes." Her mother shook her head. "Nobles are strange," she murmured. "They have big houses and still choose the smallest places to hide their fear." "He asked whoever found it to keep it," Rafaela said. "To say something if anything happened." "Did he write your name?" "No." "Then he wrote to the heir," her mother said. And the heir chose you to catch his words. What will you do with them? I do not know, Raffaella whispered. Part of me wants to burn it and forget. Part of me cannot. Her mother reached out a thin hand and Raffaella took it. We have enough worries of our own, her mother said gently. Rent, food, medicine. The troubles of a duke are very large, but they are very far from this room. The note is not far, Raffaella said. Her mother smiled sadly. Then put it somewhere, she said. If you must keep it, put it where you will not see it every moment. Let tomorrow worry about tomorrow. Raffaella nodded slowly. Later, when her mother slept, she lit a candle and took the note out. The ink shone faintly in the small light. She read it once more, then folded it carefully and slipped it into a wooden box at the bottom of her trunk, between two old handkerchiefs. Stay there, she whispered, and stay quiet. The next morning came too soon. The cold had settled into the walls. Her mother's cough sounded worse. You should see the apothecary, Raffaella said. With what? Her mother asked gently. With the smile of my daughter? He will not give syrup for smiles. I will speak to him, Raffaella said. He knows us. He knows we pay slowly, her mother answered. Go. You will lose your work if you are late again. Raffaella kissed her forehead and hurried out. At the trattoria, Bellini was already in a bad mood. You are late, he said, before she could greet him. Only by a little, she replied. A little becomes a lot, he snapped. We have deliveries, the baker is angry, the butcher is angry, I am angry. Do not make the wine angry also. I will work faster, she said. You always promise that, he muttered, but he handed her an apron. Hurry. The morning crowd is thinner, but they eat like wolves. The hours passed in a blur of bread, soup, and cheap wine. Raffaella tried to push thoughts of the Duke aside. She succeeded until the door opened and he walked in. He looked almost exactly as he had the night before. Same calm posture, same coat, same careful movements. Yet Raffaella saw something different now. Perhaps it was only the memory of the note, the knowledge that fear lived under that composed exterior. Bellini nearly dropped a stack of plates. Your Grace, he said quickly, hurrying forward. Again you honor us. Twice in 2 days. We are truly blessed. The Duke nodded once. A table in the corner, if you please, he said. And the same as yesterday. Of course, Bellini replied. He turned to Raffaella. You. Go. He asked for the same service. Raffaella wiped her hands on her apron and walked to his table. Good morning, Your Grace, she said. Good morning, he answered. His eyes met hers for a brief moment this time, direct and searching. May I speak with you away from the others for a moment? Her stomach tightened. I must tell the owner, she said. Tell him I want you to understand my order, the Duke replied calmly. It is true enough. She nodded and went to Bellini. He wishes to explain his order to me, she said. Go, go, Bellini said, waving his hand. If he wants his bread cut in the shape of the cathedral, we will cut it. Listen well, Raffaella returned. The Duke stood up and moved a step toward the narrow space near the wall, not exactly hidden, but away from most eyes. I left something here last night, he said in a low voice. Under my plate. Did you find it? Yes, she replied. Did you read it? His gaze was steady, but an undercurrent of tension showed in his clenched jaw. She looked down. Yes, she said finally. I did. He exhaled once, sharply. It was not meant for you, he said. It was meant only to be kept. You left it where anyone could find it, she answered, surprised by her own boldness. On a table in a busy room, under a plate I had to lift. What did you expect me to do, pretend it did not exist? I expected you to leave it for the owner, he said, or to keep it without reading. Without knowing if it blamed me for bad bread, she said with a hint of bitterness. You did not write my name, Your Grace. You wrote to no one, and then you placed your fear in my hands. Do not scold me for looking at what you threw into my lap. His eyes flickered. For a heartbeat, he looked less like a duke and more like a man caught without a prepared answer. Did you show it to anyone? He asked. No. You are certain? Yes. Do you still have it? Yes. He fell silent, thinking. The noise of the trattoria seemed louder around them. Clattering dishes, murmured voices, the scrape of chairs. Keep it, he said at last. Do not bring it here. Do not mention it again in this place. "What if someone comes asking?" she asked. "Last night a man came. He asked if you had left a message." The Duke's eyes sharpened. "What did he look like?" he asked. Raffaella described him as best she could. The ordinary face, the good, but not noble clothes, the careful manners. "Did he give a name?" the Duke asked. "No." "Did he say whom he worked for?" "No, he only asked about you. And letters." "And you said?" "That you left nothing." He studied her. "You did well," he said quietly. "But be cautious. There are people who would use the smallest thing against me. A word here, a gesture there." "Why?" she asked. "Because of your inheritance." His lips tightened. "You read more than the first line," he said. "I read it all," she admitted. "Once I had sinned. I did not do it by halves." A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth and vanished. "It is enough for now that you know this," he said. "There are those who would like to see my position weakened. They are patient. They do not shout. They whisper. They point to my every movement and call it recklessness. They will not expect me to place trust in a stranger in a poor street. That is why I did it." "I did not ask for your trust," she said softly. "I do not know what to do with it." "Perhaps nothing," he replied. "Perhaps everything. That depends on what happens." "Your Grace," Bellini called from behind the counter, his voice strained. "Do you still want your soup, or shall we frame the bowl and hang it on the wall?" The Duke stepped back to the table. "I will take the soup," he said. To Raffaella, more softly, "We will speak again, but not now. Bring the food, and do not look at me as if I will break in two. It draws attention." She swallowed and nodded. The rest of the trattoria did not stay blind. Men noticed that the Duke had called the waitress aside. Women at one table watched Raffaella with raised brows. When she brought the soup, one of the regulars near the door leaned over. "Ah, Raffaella," he said loudly. "Some of us get soup, some of us get dukes. Life is unfair." Laughter followed. Another man added, "Be careful, girl. Men like that eat more than chicken." Bellini frowned. "Enough," he said. "He is a paying customer like any other." "A paying customer with good eyes," someone muttered. Raffaella kept her face smooth, though her cheeks burned. She set the bowl down in front of the Duke. "Your soup, Your Grace," she said. He gave no sign of anger or embarrassment. He merely inclined his head once. "Thank you," he said. The comments continued, small and sharp. A woman in the corner whispered something to her companion, and they both looked at Raffaella and laughed. The sound cut more than the words. Raffaella moved faster, trying to drown their voices in plates and cloths. Once, as she passed near the Duke's table, someone said, "If she marries him, I will ask her for free wine." Again laughter. Lorenzo's hand tightened around his spoon, his jaw set. For a moment it seemed he would speak. But then his gaze swept the room, catching the curious eyes, the turned heads, the ears ready to drink any stray word. He lowered his spoon and finished his soup in silence. Raffaella noticed. Her hurt deepened. He could write of trust in a secret note, but not say a single word aloud to stop the mockery of a girl who carried his plate. When he finished his meal, he paid at the counter. This time he left a coin more than the price. Bellini's eyes lit up. "Grazie, Your Grace," he said. "You are most generous." Lorenzo glanced toward Raffaella, who was wiping a nearby table. Their eyes met briefly. There was something like apology there, but no words followed. He turned and left. The door closed. The room seemed to exhale. "Did you see?" the kitchen boy whispered to Raffaella. "He left extra coins this time. One coin does not feed a winter," she said quietly. "But it helps," the boy replied. She nodded but said no more. The day stretched. When her shift finally ended, the sky outside had dimmed. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and walked home, her legs aching. The stairs felt steeper than usual. She pushed the door open, expecting her mother's cough, the weak smile. Instead, she saw an envelope on the table. It lay in the center, pale against the dark wood. There was no seal. Her mother sat on the bed, a shawl around her shoulders. "A boy brought it," she said. "He said it was for you, from a gentleman." Raffaella's throat went dry. "A gentleman?" she asked. "Did he give a name?" "No." The boy only said that. Her mother nodded toward the envelope. "I did not touch it. I thought, if someone finally writes to my daughter, I should not open her secrets." Rafaela crossed the room and picked it up. The paper was thick, smooth, no name on the outside, no sign. Her fingers shook slightly as she opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet. No decoration, no flourish. She unfolded it. Be careful with what you keep that is not yours. No signature, no mark, no clue. The words stood alone, simple and cold. Rafaela stared at them, her pulse loud in her ears. Someone else knew. Someone knew she had the Duke's note, and that it was hidden in this small room above a narrow street. Rafaela lowered the paper slowly. Her mother watched her face. "What is it?" her mother asked. "You look as if the words bit you." "It is nothing," Rafaela said at once. "Nothing does not make you pale," her mother replied. "Read it to me." Rafaela hesitated, but lying would only make her tongue stumble. "It says," she read quietly, "be careful with what you keep. That is not yours." Her mother's fingers tightened around the shawl. "That is all?" she asked. "Yes," Rafaela said. "No name, no greeting." "And you say it is nothing," her mother murmured. "Who sent it?" "I do not know," Rafaela said. "The boy told you nothing else?" "Nothing," her mother said. "He left as soon as he gave it to me." Rafaela folded the paper again. The words seemed to weigh more than the page. "Is this about the Duke's note?" her mother asked. "Probably," Rafaela admitted. "Someone knows I have it." "Then you are not as invisible as you thought," her mother said quietly. "What will you do?" "I could burn it," Rafaela said. "Both notes. Then there would be nothing left to keep." "And if the Duke truly is in danger?" her mother asked. "If his fear is not an invention, and you destroy the only proof he trusted to your hands?" "I do not belong in this," Rafaela said. "We are not part of his world." "The letter on your table says otherwise," her mother replied. Silence settled between them for a moment. The small room felt smaller. Outside, a cart rolled by, wheels bumping over uneven stones. Her mother spoke again, softer. "You did not ask for this," she said. "It came to you. Sometimes life drops something at our feet, and we must decide whether we step over it or pick it up." "I already picked it up," Rafaela said. "That is the problem." "Then think carefully before you let it go," her mother answered. That night sleep came in short pieces. When Rafaela closed her eyes, she saw the Duke's hurried handwriting. When she opened them, she saw the neat, cold letters of the second note. She turned on the thin mattress and listened to her mother's breath, afraid that every noise on the stairs might be another messenger. Morning brought no answers, only chores. At the trattoria, Bellini was in a better mood. A group of clerks had just finished eating. "They pay in full and do not argue about soup," he said. "I like them." Rafaela nodded and wiped a table. "Do you think the Duke will come again?" the kitchen boy asked her. "I do not know," she said. He left a tip yesterday," the boy went on. "Maybe you changed his heart." "He left a coin," she replied. "He did not leave his heart." The bell over the door tinkled. They all looked up. It was him. The Duke of Bardi stepped inside, closed the door against the wind and scanned the room. His gaze found Rafaela almost at once. Something eased in his shoulders when he saw her there, as if he had wondered whether she would be gone. "Your Grace," Bellini said, half bowing. "Your table is empty. We kept it warm." "Thank you," Lorenzo replied. "If I may, I would like to speak with your waitress for a moment before I order." Bellini nodded eagerly. "Of course," he said. "Rafaela, go. Listen well." Rafaela wiped her hands and walked to the corner. Lorenzo moved slightly so his back was to the room, shielding their faces from easy reading. "You received a note," he said without preamble. "Yes," she answered. "From a boy." "No name." "What did it say?" he asked. "Be careful with what you keep that is not yours." His jaw clenched. "Someone is watching," he said under his breath. "They must have followed me, or asked questions here." "A man came to the trattoria the same night you left," she said. "He asked about you, about letters." "I thought so," he replied. "They are more alert than I hoped." "And I," she said, "am beginning to feel less like someone you trust and more like a piece on a chessboard I do not even see." He looked at her closely. "You are right to be cautious," he said. "I will not pretend otherwise, but I did not choose you to use you. I chose you because I needed someone outside the circle of my world, someone no one would suspect, someone whose honesty showed on her face when she brought a bowl of soup. That honesty is now a danger," she said, "for me and for my mother." I know, he said quietly. The admission seemed to cost him, which is why I will ask you this only once. If you say no, I will find another way. She folded her arms, the gesture small but firm. I am listening, she said. He spoke low, his words careful. There are people who are spreading stories about me, he said. That I am reckless, that I throw away money, that I keep bad company. They want to convince others that I am unfit to carry my title. Unfit how? She asked. Unfit in judgment, he said. If they can show that I make foolish choices, that I am irresponsible, they can argue that the estate should pass to more worthy relatives. They would do it with papers and smiles, not with open threats. I need proof that they are working in secret, twisting things that I do. And I, she said slowly, am one of the things they can twist. Yes, he admitted. They will say that my visits here prove I am careless with my name, that I seek entertainment in the wrong places. She understood what he did not say. Heat rose to her cheeks. And are you careless? She asked. Did you come here for entertainment? I came for anonymity, he said, and by some poor joke of Providence, I found the opposite. He paused, searching her face. I have begun to collect small pieces of evidence, he went on. Letters, records, notes like the one you found. I cannot keep them in my house. I suspect even my desk is not mine anymore. I need a place and a person that they will not think to search. You want me to keep them, she said. Yes, he said simply, and when the time comes, to say what you know. Not lies, not inventions, only what you have seen and held, nothing else. Do you know what happens to people like me when nobles speak our names in their disputes? She asked. We become the story, even when we have done nothing. He looked genuinely troubled. I do know, he said. That is why I hesitated even to ask. I would understand if you refused. I would find another path. And if I refuse, she asked, will your enemies stop? Will the man who sent that note to my home forget me again? No, he said quietly. They already saw you. They will not unsee you. So I am in the game whether I like it or not, she said. He did not answer. For a long moment, they stood facing each other, the noise of the room sailing around them like a river. You said you trusted my hands more than those who bow to you, she said at last. But your trust has cost me sleep. I am sorry, he said. The words came out rough, as if he was not used to saying them. I cannot undo that. I can only offer you something in return, not as payment for courage, but as aid for burdens you should not have to carry alone. Your mother's illness, for one. She stiffened. How do you know about my mother? She asked. He shifted, suddenly aware of the edge in her voice. I asked the owner, he said. He spoke of you, of your work, your late arrivals, the reason. It was not hard to guess. I did not ask you to look into my life, she said. You are right, he answered. But if I pull you closer to my danger, I should at least try to lighten some of yours. I will not be bought, she said quickly. I am not trying to buy you, he replied. I am trying to be less of a selfish fool. She studied him. The proud lines of his face were still there, but something softer had begun to appear underneath. If I agree, she said slowly, what would I have to do? Nothing that stains your honor, he said at once. Only this. Accept a few letters from time to time. Keep them in your home or somewhere you choose. Give them back to me when we meet in public places. If anyone asks, you say nothing. And if they come to my door, she asked. Do not open it, he said, or open it and pretend to be a frightened girl who knows nothing. Most of them are too proud to doubt their own assumptions. And at the end, she asked, you speak of a time that will come. What happens then? There will be a sort of council, he said. Half family, half legal. There my conduct will be examined. I may ask you to speak. Only the truth, nothing more. The truth might not be enough, she said. It is all I am willing to stand on, he replied. She thought of her mother's face, of the empty jar on the shelf where medicine should be. If I say yes, she said, you will help with the apothecary. Not as a favor, as payment for the work you ask of me. I do not want gifts. He nodded. Agreed, he said. And if I say no? She asked for the last time. I will leave you in peace as far as I can, he answered, though I cannot erase what others have already noticed. She took a slow breath. Then I say yes, she said quietly. Not because I want to be part of your world, but because I do not want to stand still while someone uses my name for lies. Something eased in his eyes. Thank you, he said. You do more than you know. Bellini called from across the room. Has he decided how he wants his bread cut? He shouted. Or are you designing a palace out of it? Lorenzo gave a faint smile. Bring me whatever the kitchen has, he said. I am less delicate than he thinks. Later that week, the whatever the kitchen has became a pattern. Sometimes he came in the evening, sometimes near midday. Sometimes he only drank a little wine and left early. But each time, in some small moment, Raffaella would receive a folded note along with his payment, or he would ask to speak with her near the wall or by the back door. I will leave something at the church of Santa Maria Novella, one note said. It will be under the third pew from the back, left side. Go to the apothecary tomorrow, another said. He will give you what your mother needs. The cost is already taken care of. Once, in person, he instructed her to meet him near the market. Not alone, he said. Walk as if you are shopping. I will be on the other side. If anyone watches, they will see nothing but a duke buying oranges and a girl buying bread. She did as he asked. They passed each other near a stall of vegetables, hands brushing for a moment as he passed a small envelope to her. This is madness, she whispered. It is order, he replied, hidden inside madness. Each letter he gave her carried pieces of the puzzle, copies of bills, notes from servants, strange accounts of visits from certain relatives. She did not always understand the meaning, but she kept them all together in the wooden box that had once held only old cloth. Their meetings never lasted long. Still, in those brief exchanges, something changed. His questions about her mother were not cold. He asked if the medicine helped, if the cough had eased. He noticed when her hands were more chapped than usual. You work too much, he said one day. And you? She asked. Do you work, Your Grace, or simply worry? I sign more papers than I wish, he answered. Some men build walls with stones. I build them with ink. And do they keep you safe? She asked. We will see, he said. It was during one of these quiet days that Bellini rushed into the kitchen, his eyes bright. Raffaella, he said, you are coming with me this afternoon. Where? She asked. To the house of the Marchesa di Rinaldi, he said. We are to serve at a small gathering, an honor. We must bring our best. Our name will travel farther than this street. A Marchesa, the cook echoed. Do they know our plates are chipped? They know our food is good, Bellini snapped. Wear your clean dress, Raffaella, and do not drop anything. In the afternoon she went with him, a basket of pastries on her arm, her heart beating a little faster. The Rinaldi house was large, with a carved door and windows that looked out on a quiet square. Inside, servants moved smoothly like practiced hands in a machine. Do as they do, Bellini murmured. Smile when appropriate. Do not speak unless spoken to. And if anyone asks where you are from, say from Bellini's, as if it were a royal palace. The gathering was not large. A few men in tailored coats, several women in silk dresses, a murmur of conversation. Raffaella carried trays of small cakes and poured drinks when a hand lifted a glass. She did not expect to see Lorenzo there, but he was near the open doors to a balcony, speaking with a group of men. His posture was relaxed, his expression attentive. He looked as if he belonged there completely. For a moment, she doubted that the man who had spoken with her in quiet corners was the same one standing now under a chandelier. She told herself not to look at him again. Then his gaze slid over the room and caught her. It lasted only a second. His eyes rested on her face, not in surprise, but in sudden alertness. Then he turned back to the man who was speaking to him, as if nothing had happened. Is that not the Duke of Bardi? A female voice nearby asked. Yes, another woman replied. He has been much discussed lately. Some say he is too independent. Others say he is merely young. Is he spoken for? The first asked with a soft laugh. Not officially, the second said, but I have heard the Marchesa intends to introduce him to her niece, the one in blue. Raffaella glanced toward the one in blue and saw a young woman not much older than herself, with delicate gloves and an expression that suggested she had never worried about paying an apothecary. She turned her eyes away and focused on her tray. At one point she passed near the small group of women. The lady in blue lifted her eyes and signaled for a pastry. Thank you, the lady said, taking one with careful fingers. Then she paused, looking at Raffaella more closely. "You are not one of our servants." "No, signora," Raffaella replied. "I come from a trattoria. We are here to serve for the afternoon." "A trattoria," the lady repeated, as if tasting a word from a foreign tongue. "Which one?" "Bellini's," Raffaella said. "Ah." The lady's lips curved. "The one near the river. I have heard that simple men shout there over bread." "Sometimes they shout more than they chew," Raffaella answered, trying to keep her tone mild. Some of the women laughed softly. "And is it true," the lady in blue went on, her voice light but curious, "that the Duke of Bardi has been seen at such a place?" Raffaella's hand tightened around the tray. "I could not say, signora," she replied. "Cannot or will not?" the lady asked, her eyes sharp now. "I am there to serve soup, not to count faces," Raffaella said. One of the older women chuckled. "Come, Bianca," she said to the lady in blue. "Do not frighten the girl. It is not her fault if men with titles like common food." Bianca smiled, but her gaze did not soften. "I do not mean to frighten her," she said. "It is only that I find it interesting when men who say they are particular about company choose to mix with anyone who can hold a spoon." Her friends smiled at the cleverness. Raffaella kept her head slightly down, a shield that showed respect and hid the heat in her cheeks. "I must continue," she said quietly. "There are other guests." As she turned, Bianca spoke again, louder. "Girls from such places must be careful," she said. "If they look too high, they forget that the ground is under their feet." The comment floated into the air, light and poisonous. Raffaella kept walking. Near the balcony, Lorenzo shifted. His eyes had moved in their direction more than once. He had heard. She knew he had heard. Yet he did not step forward. He did not say, "She has done nothing wrong," or, "We will not speak so near my table." He remained where he was, caught between courtesy and calculation. Later, as Raffaella passed behind him with an empty tray, one of the men near him said, "I am told you have very democratic tastes in food, Your Grace. Little streets, simple soups. Is that wise?" "I see no harm in knowing what my city eats," Lorenzo replied evenly. "The stomach does not care for titles." "And the company?" the man asked with a hint of amusement. "Do your equals in rank enjoy hearing about your new acquaintances?" "They enjoy whatever gives them gossip," Lorenzo said. "They would speak about my shadow if I stood too long in one place." The men laughed. The answer was clever. It did not cost him anything. For Raffaella, it cost everything. She finished the afternoon in silence. When the last tray was empty and Bellini gave her a subtle nod, they took their baskets and left through the servants' entrance. Outside, the sky had turned a dull silver. Bellini walked ahead, counting the coins he had received. "It went well," he said. "No plates dropped, no wine spilled. Perhaps they will call us again." Raffaella said nothing. "You are quiet," he remarked. "Did one of the rich ladies bite?" "No," Raffaella said. "They only talked." "Bah!" he said. "Their words are made of sugar and air. Do not swallow them." He turned down another street, still muttering. After a few more steps, he remembered supplies he had to collect and went left toward the market. "Go home," he told her. "You have done enough. Tomorrow, same time." She nodded and went the other way, alone. The streets near the Rinaldi house were different from hers. Wider, cleaner, quieter. Carriages waited along the square, their horses shifting now and then. A coachman flicked a bit of dust from his sleeve. As she walked past one of the carriages, she heard voices from inside. The window curtain was not fully closed. Two men were speaking in low tones, but the words slipped out through the narrow gap. "If we are to convince them, we must show that he lacks judgment," one voice said. "Stories about careless company help. A duke who spends his evenings in backstreet taverns looks less like a guardian of his estate and more like a boy playing with mud." "The girl from the trattoria?" the other asked. "Is she pretty enough to be useful in the story?" "Pretty or not, she is poor," the first replied. "That is all we need. A name, a place, and a suggestion. They will imagine the rest. Some will swear they saw them together, even if they never left their chairs." "And if she speaks?" the second man asked. "Who will listen to a waitress over a marchesa?" the first said lightly. "We do not need her. We only need the idea of her. By the time anyone thinks to ask, her name will already be the stain we need." Raffaella stopped mid-step, her hand tightening around the empty basket. They were talking about her. They were talking about her as if she were a seasoning to be sprinkled on a dish, there to give flavor and then disappear. They were going to use her name to paint Lorenzo as irresponsible, to twist their quiet meetings into something shameful, to make her into a convenient proof of his supposed unworthiness. Raffaella stood very still, the basket handle digging into her palm. The voices in the carriage went on. "People love stories that lower the high," the first man said. "A noble and a little waitress. It is almost kind of us to give them such a tale." "And the girl?" the second man asked again. "What if she protests?" "She will deny it, of course," the first replied. "That is part of the charm. The more she denies, the more others will insist they saw her. Let her talk. It will only spread the story faster." They laughed quietly. A hand reached up and pulled the curtain fully closed. The voices muffled. Raffaella realized she had not breathed. She took a sharp breath and forced herself to walk on, her legs unsteady. She turned down the first side street she saw. Only when she could no longer see the Rinaldi house did she stop. She leaned against a wall, her basket pressed to her chest. "They will use me," she whispered to the empty street. Like a stain on his coat. A cat slipped past her feet and vanished into a doorway. Somewhere a bell rang the hour. She pushed herself away from the wall and kept walking. At home, her mother noticed at once. "What happened?" she asked. "You look like someone pulled the floor from under you." "I heard them," Raffaella said, lowering herself onto the chair. "Two men, in a carriage. They spoke of him, of me. They plan to say he is unfit because he comes to the trattoria. They will say I am proof he has no sense." Her mother frowned. "They used your name?" she asked. "Not yet," Raffaella said, "but they will. They want my name, my face, to decorate their lies." "And what does he say?" her mother asked. "The Duke. He said nothing at the Marchesa's house," Raffaella replied, bitterness sharpening her words. "He heard a lady mock me. He heard men joke about his tastes. He answered with clever phrases. He did not say my name, but he did not stop them from dragging it through their minds." "Perhaps he could not," her mother said. "These gatherings are cages made of manners." "He could have done something," Raffaella insisted. "Looked at me, spoken to me once, said they should not use my place for jokes. Instead he stood still, and now I am the one they will call shameless." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "What will you do?" she asked. "I do not know," Raffaella whispered. "If I stay silent, they will still use me. If I speak, they will say I am hungry for attention. Either way, I am only a story to them." "Not to everyone," her mother said gently. "Not to me. Not to the boy at the trattoria who depends on your quick hands. And perhaps not to him." Raffaella looked at her sharply. "He left you that note under a plate," her mother went on. "He wrote with his fear, not his pride. That is not nothing. He left me his fear and took my peace," Raffaella said. Her mother smiled sadly. "Some people leave crumbs," she said. "Some leave stones. This one left a whole house of trouble at your door, but the door is already open. Now you must decide whether to keep standing there or step inside." "I do not want his world," Raffaella said. "I only wanted to carry soup and pay for your medicine." "And yet his world has extended its hand to you," her mother replied. "You cannot pretend not to see it." That night, Raffaella lay awake, listening to her mother's breathing and the faint noises of the building. She turned the problem over and over, like a coin worn between worried fingers. In the morning, she made a decision, not a complete one, but a first step. At the trattoria, she waited. Her hands moved automatically, but her eyes went to the door each time it opened. The Duke did not come that morning. He did not come at midday. By late afternoon, her patience thinned. She began to think that perhaps he would not come at all, that he had heard enough whispers, and decided that a small trattoria and a poor waitress were too heavy a weight. Then the door opened, and he stepped in. He looked more tired than usual. The lines around his mouth had deepened, but his back was straight and his gaze searched for her as he crossed the threshold. Bellini hurried toward him. "Your Grace," he said, "your table is ready. The chicken is fresh, or as fresh as yesterday's bird can be." "Thank you," Lorenzo replied. "I will eat later. First, I must speak with your waitress." Bellini glanced at Raffaella, curious. "Again?" he said. You must be planning a statue of her in your dining room, Your Grace. She is efficient, Lorenzo said. I value efficiency. Bellini laughed and waved Raffaella over. Go, he said. See what grand matters he has to discuss about spoons. Raffaella approached, her heart steady now with anger and questions. Lorenzo moved toward the back door. Here, he said quietly. If we stand in the corner, they will think I am complaining about the bread. You have much to complain about, she said. But not only the bread. He looked at her, surprised by her tone. Something has happened, he said. What is it? She met his gaze. I served at the house of the Marchesa di Rinaldi, she said. I saw you there. You saw me. A lady in blue asked about you, about the trattoria. She mocked me. Men joked. You heard. You said clever things about stomachs and shadows. You did not say my name. You did not say, she has done nothing wrong. He flinched as if struck. You were listening, he said. I did not know. I was carrying pastries, she replied. I'm always listening. No one sees a tray. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration that broke his controlled calm. If I had defended you openly, he said, they would have used it at once. See, they would say, he makes a scene for a waitress. He cannot control himself. They need so little to justify their doubts, I was afraid of giving them more. So you protected yourself and left me naked, she said. They spoke of me as if I were a flavor in their soup, something to taste and spit out. And now they sit in carriages and plan how to use my name to hurt you. His eyes sharpened. You heard that? He asked. Yes, she said. 2 men, outside the Rinaldi house. They said all they needed was a girl from a trattoria to stain your reputation, that my denying it would only feed their story. He exhaled slowly. Then we are further along than I hoped, he murmured. I thought I had more time. Time for what? She demanded. Time to let them paint me as your amusement while you say nothing? His shoulders squared. No, he said. Time to gather enough proof that their games cannot stand. Time to prepare a defense that does not rely on shouting in salons. Well, they are already painting, she said, and I am the brush in their hand. What do you offer me, besides apology and fear? He considered her for a moment, then spoke with unusual directness. Truth, he said, and a choice. I am listening, she said again, her voice cool. You know some pieces of this, he said, but not all. My father died 3 years ago. The estate passed to me. Some members of my family accepted it. Others did not. They had different plans. They wanted the property divided, the power spread. Or rather, moved to them. So they began to say you were unfit, she said. Yes, he replied. At first it was small, a hint that I was too young, too impulsive. Then stories about how I spent my time, where I went. They gathered every small thing, every walk, every dinner, and turned it into evidence of my recklessness. And what are you really? She asked. Reckless or careful? He gave a brief, humorless smile. Both, he said. I have made mistakes. I have trusted some people I should not have. I have ignored others. But I know the weight of what I carry. I do not throw it into the river for amusement. He paused. Recently, he went on, they have pushed for a kind of examination, a gathering of family and legal minds to assess my conduct. If they can show enough doubts, they will put pressure on the authorities to declare me unfit to manage the estate. They will not remove the title, perhaps, but they can take control of the land, the money, the decisions. And they will use me as one of their doubts, she said. Look, they will say he plays with waitresses in dark streets. Yes, he said. That is their intention. Then why should I help you? She asked. Why not let them strip you? Then they might forget me. Do you believe that? He asked quietly. That they will forget the story once it has served them? Stories do not vanish. They linger in mouths and minds. Even if I lose everything, they will keep your name as a small, idle entertainment. She knew he was right. Silence would not erase what they had already begun to whisper. I cannot change what they say, he continued. But I can offer you a way to speak your own truth. I can stand beside you when you do it. I can refuse to let them twist you into a tool. And the danger, she asked, to you, to me? For me it is constant, he said. If not this, then something else. For you, it grows with every day you carry my notes. That is why I brought you a choice now before they call us to that council. He took a breath. "You can step away," he said. "Give me back everything you keep. Pretend you never saw me as anything but a customer. I will find another way. It will be harder, but I will do it." "And if I step away," she said, "what will they say when they notice they already speak of me?" "They will say I discarded you," he replied, "or that you grew bold and demanded more than I would give. They will shape the story to their needs. You will have no voice in it." "Or?" she asked. "Or you stay," he said. "You keep the letters. You agree to speak when the time comes. You say in that room that our meetings were only what they were, brief, public, chaste, that I asked your help for papers, not for pleasures, that you were the one carrying my fear, not my indiscretion. And they will believe me?" she asked. "Some will," he said. "Some will not. But I will be there. I will not leave you alone in that room. I swear it." She looked at him for a long moment. "Your swear means less to them than their gossip," she said. "Perhaps," he said. "But it must mean something to you, or we have nothing to discuss." It did. That was the problem. She thought of her mother, of the apothecary, of the boy who had brought the anonymous note, of Bianca's smile, of the men in the carriage. "I need time," she said softly. "You have very little," he answered. "They are pushing for this council soon, perhaps within weeks. I need one night," she said, "to ask my own counsel." He understood. "Of course," he said, "I will not come tomorrow. If you decide to stand with me, bring a white cloth in your hand the next time I enter. If you decide to walk away, bring nothing. I will read your answer and ask no questions." She frowned. "Why a cloth?" she asked. "Because no one will think twice about a waitress carrying a cloth," he said. "And I will know, and we will not need words." He stepped back then, his face slipping into its usual composed mask. "Now I will eat," he said in a louder voice. "Whatever your cook considers edible." The next hours passed in a blur. She served him as if nothing had changed. He ate, paid, left. Bellini commented on his appetite. The kitchen boy whispered jokes. That night, Raffaella told her mother everything, not the details of every note, but enough. "He wants me to speak," she said. "He wants me to be his witness. He says my truth is the one thing they cannot twist completely." Her mother listened, her frail hands folded in her lap. "And what do you want?" her mother asked when she finished. "I want to disappear," Raffaella said. "I want them to forget my name. I want to go back to being the girl who carries soup." "Can you?" her mother asked. Raffaella paused. "No," she said. "They have already taken my name in their mouths." "Then what else do you want?" her mother asked. She searched for an answer, and found one she had not expected. "I want my name to mean something I chose," she said. "Not something they invented." Her mother nodded slowly. "When I was your age," she said, "I made a choice to marry your father instead of the safer man my parents preferred. It cost me some comforts. It gave me other things. If I had chosen the safer path, I might have had more coins, but I would have had less laughter." "This is not about marriage," Raffaella said quickly, color rising to her face. "No," her mother said. "It is about who you are when the world decides to look at you. This man, this duke, he has shown you his weakness as well as his pride. He has asked for your help. You can say no. You are not bound." "If I say no, I feel cowardly," Raffaella said slowly. "If I say yes, I am afraid." "Courage is not the absence of fear," her mother replied. "It is doing what feels right while your knees shake." "What if I am wrong about him?" Raffaella asked. "What if he is only using me?" Her mother smiled a little. "Then you will learn something painful and survive it," she said. "You have survived worse things than a proud man." "Such as?" Raffaella asked. "Such as hunger," her mother said. "Such as long winters. Such as carrying more than your share since you were a child. This is not heavier, it is only louder." Raffaella looked at her mother's thin face. Love tightened her throat. "If I go to that council," she said quietly, "they will look at me as if I am dirt under their shoes." "Then stand straight," her mother said. "Let them see how tall dirt can be." The next day, Raffaella woke with her decision already sitting in her chest, quiet and solid. She went to the apothecary first. The apothecary, a man with kind eyes and a careful ledger, greeted her with familiarity. "Your mother's mixture is ready," he said. "And before you worry, yes, I know, you will pay when you can. Today, it is taken care of." "By whom?" she asked, though she knew. "A client of mine," he replied. A man with a good coat and too many worries. He said it was for a woman who coughs at the top of a narrow stair. She lowered her eyes. Thank you, she said. Thank him, the apothecary replied. Or do not. But do not refuse the medicine out of pride. Pride does not loosen coughs. She took the bottle and left. At the trattoria, she tied her apron as usual. The white cloth she always used to wipe tables lay folded on the counter. Her hand hovered over it for a moment. Then she picked it up and tucked it into her belt. The morning passed. No Duke. She began to think he might not come. Perhaps his relatives had already moved faster than he expected. Perhaps he was busy with papers, with lawyers, with quiet battles she could not see. Near midday, the bell over the door rang. He walked in, the cold clinging to his coat, his eyes scanning the room. When he saw her, something like relief crossed his face, quickly hidden. Your Grace, Bellini said, already moving toward him. Welcome, the fire is warm, the soup is better behaved today. Good, Lorenzo said. I am in no mood to fight soup. He started toward his usual table. Raffaella stepped into his path with the tray in her hands. On the tray lay a jug of water and 2 empty glasses, nothing special, but her hand moved to the cloth at her belt, and she raised it to wipe a non-existent spot on the table. Their eyes met for a moment. He saw the white cloth. His jaw relaxed. You have decided, he said under his breath. Yes, she replied. I will stand with you, not because you are a duke, because I refuse to be only the shadow in their story. He nodded, and in that small movement was more gratitude than any speech. Then I must be worthy of that, he said quietly. Tonight, when you finish, I will come to your home. We should speak where we are not surrounded by spoons. She blinked. To my home? She asked. Yes, he said, if you will allow it. I would rather your mother hear some of this from my mouth, not only from yours. She hesitated, then nodded. You may come, she said. But mind the stairs. They complain. They are not alone, he answered, a quick smile touching his mouth. That evening, after her shift ended, Raffaella hurried home. She straightened the room as best she could, smoothed the blanket on her mother's bed, set an extra chair by the table. Her mother watched, amused. You move like a storm, she said. Has the Pope announced a visit? Not the Pope, Raffaella said. The Duke. Her mother's eyes widened. Here? She asked. In this room? Yes, Raffaella said. He wants to speak to both of us. Her mother touched her hair, smoothing a stray strand. Then we will give him a clean chair, she said. Nothing impresses nobles like a chair that does not wobble. When the knock came, it was soft but sure. Raffaella opened the door. Lorenzo stood there without his usual gloves, his coat buttoned to his throat. The narrow stairway made him look taller, his shoulders broader. Good evening, he said. Come in, she replied. He stepped inside and glanced around. His eyes took in the small bed, the table, the stove, the single shelf with a few dishes and a small wooden box. No judgment showed on his face, only a quiet recognition. Your Grace, her mother said from the bed, trying to sit up straighter. He moved toward her at once. Please do not strain yourself, he said gently. I am the intruder here. I should be the one standing. His voice, so often cold in the trattoria, had warmed. He took her mother's hand and bowed his head slightly. You have raised a very brave daughter, he said. Her mother smiled. I raised a stubborn girl, she replied. Bravery is only stubbornness in a better coat. He laughed softly. Then I am in good company, he said. They sat. The room felt smaller but not cramped. Raffaella watched him, waiting. He did not waste time. I came, he said, looking from mother to daughter, not only to thank you for your decision, but to be honest about what it demands. He explained again, more fully, the coming council. How certain relatives had pressed for it, how they would gather in a room with polished wood and measured voices to decide his fate, as if they were discussing the weather. They will bring their stories, he said, the ones they are already telling, about my supposed carelessness, about my visits to places like the trattoria, about you. And what will you bring? Her mother asked. Proof that much of what they say is twisted, he said. Accounts that show where the money truly goes, letters that reveal their plans, and witnesses who can speak of my conduct honestly. Witnesses like my daughter, her mother said. Yes, he replied, though I wish I could spare her. My enemies have already written her into their play. The only way to change the script is to step on their stage. You ask her to walk into a room where no one thinks she belongs, her mother said. You realize that? I do, he said quietly. I ask it knowing what it costs. I have seen how people in my world look at those who serve them, as if they are furniture that breathes. And you? Rafaela asked softly. How do you see us? He met her gaze. As people, he said. Some kind, some cruel, some foolish, some wise, just like those who wear titles. Silence sat with them for a moment. If she speaks, her mother said, you will stand beside her? Every moment, he said. If they question her, they question me. I will not let her be used as a shield while I hide. Rafaela watched his face. The words rang true. There was strain there and worry, but no evasion. You must understand, he went on, turning to her, your testimony will do more than clear me of scandal. It will show that I chose to trust someone beyond my circle, that I believed in your honesty over the comfort of flatterers. They may call that foolish, I call it necessary. And after, she asked, when the council ends, when they decide whatever they decide, what happens to me? That is what troubles you most, he said. And rightly. You fear being tossed aside once you have served your purpose. You fear I will return to my world and leave you to the whispers. He took a slow breath, as if stepping into cold water. I cannot promise to silence every tongue in Florence, he said. No one can. But I can promise this. I will not walk away from you. Not as an ally. Not as a friend. The slight pause before the last word hung between them. And if your council decides against you, her mother asked, if you lose part of what you own, then I will still be the man I am, he said, with more scars and fewer keys, but I will still keep my word. He reached into his coat and drew out a small object wrapped in cloth. I brought you something, he said to Rafaela. Not as payment, as a sign. He placed the wrapped bundle on the table. She unwrapped it. Inside was a ring, simple gold, worn smooth at the edges. There was a small crest engraved on it, a stylized lion and a star. It was my father's, Lorenzo said. He wore it when he went to sign documents that mattered, when he needed to remember that he was more than the paper in front of him. I have worn it since his passing. It reminds me of duty, of responsibility, of mistakes I do not wish to repeat. Rafaela stared at it. You are giving it to me? She asked. I am asking you to keep it, he said. For now. As long as you hold my letters, you hold this as well. If something happens to me, it will prove that I trusted you, that I placed my name in your hands. If nothing happens, you will give it back when this is over. It is too much, she said. I am only... Do not finish that sentence, he said gently. You are not only anything, you are Rafaela Conti. You found a note and chose not to sell it. You agreed to help a man who has more to lose than sense. You are about to stand in a room that does not welcome you and speak anyway. I can think of no hands more worthy of keeping this. Her mother's eyes shone. Take it, child, she said softly. Not for the gold, for what it says about who you are. Slowly, Rafaela picked up the ring. It was heavier than it looked, warm from his hand. I will keep it safe, she said. With the letters, with the first note you left. If anyone doubts, they will see that you did not use me in secret. You trusted me openly. He nodded. That is all I can ask, he said. They spoke a while longer. He asked her mother about her health, about the village she had left long ago. They shared small stories, simple things that had nothing to do with councils or estates. For a brief time, the room felt less like a hiding place and more like neutral ground where titles loosened. When he rose to leave, he bowed to her mother again. Thank you for letting me into your home, he said. Whatever happens, I'm grateful. Bring my daughter back from that council with her head high, her mother replied. That will be thanks enough. He turned to Rafaela. I will send word when the day is set, he said. It will not be long. I will be ready, she said. On the stairs, his steps were careful, respectful of the worn wood. Rafaela closed the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment, the ring in her palm and her mother's gaze on her face. For the first time since the note had appeared under the plate, the weight she carried felt shared, not forced on her. She slipped the ring into the wooden box with the letters and closed the lid with a quiet, steady hand. The morning of the council, broke grey and still. Raffaella stood by the small window, fingers tight around the edge of the curtain. Below, the narrow street was already waking. A vendor calling, a cart rattling past. It looked like any other day. Her mother watched from the bed. "You will wear a hole in the floor if you keep pacing," she said gently. "I do not know how to stand still," Raffaella replied. She wore her best dress, the one she kept folded in paper. It was plain but neat. Her hair was pulled back carefully. On the table, beside a small slice of bread, lay the wooden box. She opened it. Inside were the letters, the first note, and the ring. Her mother pointed at the ring. "Do not forget that," she said. "It may speak louder than your voice." "Do you truly think they will listen?" Raffaella asked. "Some will listen to your words," her mother said. "Some will listen to his. Some will only listen to their own fears. But you will have done what is right. That is all a person can do." A knock sounded at the door. Raffaella jumped. She opened it to find a coachman on the landing, hat in hand. "Signorina Conti?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I am sent from the Duke of Bardi," he said. "If you are ready, the carriage is waiting. There is room for one more if—" His eyes flicked toward the bed. Her mother shook her head. "I will not go," she said. "My cough will echo in that room like a drum. Besides, someone must stay here and pray that the ceiling does not fall." Raffaella crossed the room and hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of soap and old linen. "I will come back," she whispered. "Walk in there as if you own your own name," her mother replied. "Because you do." Raffaella slipped the letters and the first note into a cloth pouch, then tucked the pouch inside her bodice. The ring she placed in a small pocket sewn into her dress. She took one last look at the room, then followed the coachman down the stairs. The carriage rolled through Florence, wheels murmuring along the stones. Raffaella watched buildings pass, each window a small, contained world. She felt like a piece of thread being drawn toward a knot. When they reached the building, she saw it was not a palace, but it might as well have been. High steps, heavy doors, stone worn smooth by years of important feet. Lorenzo waited at the entrance. He had not worn his grandest coat. His clothes were fine but simple, a dark suit that did not shout for attention. His eyes met hers as she stepped down from the carriage. "You came," he said. "I said I would," she replied. He offered his arm. For a brief second she hesitated. Then she placed her hand lightly on his sleeve. "We go in together," he said quietly. "And we leave the same way. Remember that." Inside, the corridor smelled faintly of wax and paper. A servant led them to a large room where several people already sat around a table. Some wore the expressions of judges, others those of distant cousins who had come more for curiosity than duty. An older man with a measured gaze and careful hands sat at the head. He appeared to be the presiding lawyer, the one meant to keep order. "Your Grace," the man said as Lorenzo entered. "Thank you for being punctual. I have waited long enough for this," Lorenzo replied. "I did not wish to add another minute." The man's eyes moved to Raffaella. "And this is the young woman you mentioned," he said. "Signorina Raffaella Conti," she said. Her voice sounded steady, to her own surprise. "Very well," the man said. "You may be seated for now, Signorina Conti. We will call on you presently." A few faces turned toward her, some curious, some politely blank. One, near the opposite end of the table, full of barely concealed annoyance. "Count Riccardo Bardi." Raffaella recognized him from the carriage at the Rinaldi house, the man whose voice had dripped with amusement while he spoke of her like a seasoning. His hair was streaked with silver, his jaw strong, his smile small and sharp. His eyes slid over her as if she were a stain on the floor. She took a seat on a plain chair along the wall, her hands folded in her lap. Lorenzo sat at the table itself opposite Riccardo. The presiding lawyer cleared his throat. "We are gathered," he said, "to address concerns raised about the management of the Bardi estate and the conduct of its present duke. Let us speak plainly but with respect." Riccardo's mouth curved. "Plainly, then," he said. "I do not question my younger cousin's heart, only his judgment. We have heard reports of imprudent choices, frequenting of low establishments, associations that do not honor the name he bears. Rumors," Lorenzo said calmly, "carried by those who enjoy whispering." "Not only rumors," Riccardo replied. Servants talk. Merchants talk. In particular, I am told you have spent a great deal of time in a certain trattoria in the company of a young woman whose social position is not equal to your own. All eyes turned briefly toward Raffaella. Heat rose to her cheeks, but she kept her gaze on the table. The presiding lawyer lifted a hand. "We will proceed in order," he said. "Count Riccardo, present any evidence you feel is necessary. The Duke will respond. Then we will hear from witnesses." "Very well," Riccardo said. He laid out a few sheets of paper. "Here are accounts of visits to small taverns and shops in areas not known for refinement, notes from those who saw him, statements from servants who have been concerned." Lorenzo listened, expression carefully neutral. When the lawyer turned to him, Lorenzo spoke. "I do not deny I have walked in those streets," he said, "nor that I have eaten in that trattoria. I am not ashamed of knowing what my city looks like beyond my own walls, but I have done nothing there that dishonors my name or any others." "Yes, yes," Riccardo said. "You speak of noble curiosity. Others speak of wasted hours and unwise companionship. At least in those places," Lorenzo said quietly. "People say what they mean. In certain drawing rooms they dress their envy in concern." A murmur ran around the table. The presiding lawyer cut it off. "Let us avoid sharpness," he said. "We are here to verify facts. You mentioned you wish to call a witness, Your Grace." "I do," Lorenzo said, turning toward the chairs along the wall. "Signorina Conti, will you come forward?" Raffaella's heart beat hard. She stood, smoothed her skirt and walked to the table. The floor felt too large under her feet, the table too polished. "Please state your name for the record," the lawyer said. "Raffaella Conti," she answered, "daughter of Elena Conti. I work at Trattoria Bellini." "And your connection to the Duke of Bardi?" Riccardo asked smoothly. "Other than serving him soup?" "I served him food," she said, "and some of his secrets chose to sit under his plate." A few eyebrows rose. "Explain," the lawyer said. She took a breath. "One night," she began, "the Duke came to the trattoria. He ate and left. No extra coin, no word, only some money for the meal. When I lifted his plate, I found a folded note underneath." "You read it?" Riccardo asked, leaning back. "Yes," she said. "I thought it might be a complaint or something meant for the owner. It was not. It was different." "How so?" the lawyer asked. "It was a plea," she said simply. "He wrote that he did not know whom he could trust, that he feared someone close to him wanted to take his inheritance, that he was surrounded by ears, even in his own house. He asked whoever found the note to keep it safe and to show it if anything happened to him." "Convenient," Riccardo murmured. "A secret note. No one saw it but you." "I did not invent the ink," she replied, lifting her eyes to him. "Do you still have this note?" the lawyer asked. "Yes," she said. "Produce it then," Riccardo said sharply. "Let us see this miracle paper that fell under your plate." She reached into her bodice and withdrew the cloth pouch. Her fingers were steady as she unwrapped it and took out the first note, the paper a little worn at the creases. She handed it to the presiding lawyer. He read silently. His brows drew together. "L.B.," he murmured. "The initials are there. The hand appears consistent with the Duke's signatures I have seen." He passed it to another man who frowned over it, then nodded slowly. Riccardo reached for it, but the lawyer kept a hand on the edge. "You may look," he said, "but do not damage it." Riccardo read quickly. His lips thinned. "So," he said, "a dramatic note. It proves nothing but his own nervousness, and it certainly does not prove that you are an innocent bystander, Signorina. For all we know, you could have persuaded him to write it, or written it yourself." "Can you write like that?" someone murmured. Raffaella turned to Riccardo, her voice steady. "If I had written it myself," she said, "do you think I would have chosen to write that he trusted someone of my place instead of yours?" A small, sharp breath of amusement escaped one of the younger men at the table before he covered it with a cough. The lawyer raised a hand. "Let us focus," he said. "Signorina Conti, after you found this note, what happened?" "He came back the next day," she said. "He asked if I had found it. I told him I had and that I had read it. He was unhappy about that, but later he explained more, that some relatives wished to show him as unfit, that he needed places to keep letters and papers he could not trust in his own house. He asked if I would keep them. And you agreed? Ricardo asked. Why? A doctor's medicine costs money, she said simply. He offered help with that if I agreed. And, she hesitated, then finished, I did not like the thought of people twisting my name into something I had not chosen. I thought, if I help him, perhaps I can keep some truth in the story. That sounds like ambition dressed as virtue, Ricardo said. A clever girl from the streets sees a chance to tie herself to a duke. Why should we see you as anything but an opportunist? Something in Lorenzo's face shifted. He sat up straighter. Careful, he said softly. You speak of the woman who risked her safety for mine. This is not your moment to be gallant, Ricardo said. It is our moment to be honest. The presiding lawyer cut across them. We are not here to insult anyone, he said. Signorina Conti, besides this first note, did you keep other documents? Yes, she said. Copies of bills, letters that showed strange things, visits at odd hours, requests about the estate that did not seem right. Do you have them? The lawyer asked. Yes, she said again. Here. She lifted the rest of the papers from the pouch. The lawyer sifted through them, his eyes narrowing. These are copies of drafts, he said. Requests to move funds, suggestions that certain lands be sold at low prices. And this, he held up one. This appears to be a letter from Count Ricardo to an associate, he said slowly, discussing the possibility of shifting control of certain properties away from the current duke, if doubts about his judgment can be presented. Ricardo's color rose. I have written many letters, he said quickly. Anyone can copy a hand. A girl with nimble fingers, for example. A girl with access to your desk? The lawyer asked mildly. How would she have slipped into your study, Count? Past your servants? Past your locks? Ricardo opened his mouth, then closed it. Lorenzo spoke. I made those copies myself, he said. From documents I found in places they should not have been. Letters left where careless trust thought them safe. You broke into private rooms? Ricardo demanded. I entered my own house, Lorenzo replied calmly, and looked at what was there. If your letters were lying on tables under my roof, that is hardly my fault. The lawyer tapped the papers against the table. These documents, combined with the initial note and the testimony we have heard, paint a clearer picture, he said. There is a disagreement in the family about the management of the estate. Some parties have considered indirect means of influencing that decision. He turned to Raffaella. And your dealings with the Duke? He asked. Were they ever improper? Did he ever compromise your honor in any way? No, she said at once. Never. Careful, Ricardo said. Your future comfort may depend on his favor. That tends to soften tongues. My future comfort depends on my ability to sleep, she replied. Lying would make it hard. Answer simply, the lawyer said, a hint of a smile in his tone. She nodded. He always met me in public places, she said. At the trattoria, near the market, in the church courtyard. He never touched me in a way he should not. He never asked for anything, except that I keep his letters safe and pass them back when he asked. And yet he visits your modest home, Ricardo said. Alone? That is what we have heard. Once, she said, feeling her cheeks warm, to speak with my mother, to ask for her understanding for what he was asking of me. He sat on a chair, not on my bed. He brought no gifts of jewelry, no promises of riches, only his worry and his thanks. Some of those around the table shifted, exchanging glances. Of course, Ricardo said dryly. The perfect gentleman, with the poorest girl in Florence. He gave me this, Raffaella said suddenly. She reached into the pocket of her dress and took out the ring. It glinted softly in the light. He said it was his father's, she went on, that he wore it when he needed to remember who he was meant to be. He asked me to keep it with the letters, so that if anything happened there would be proof that he had trusted me, not in secret, but openly. The room went still. The presiding lawyer leaned forward. May I see it? He asked. She handed it to him with care. He turned it over in his fingers, examining the crest. I have seen this ring before, he said. On your father's hand, Your Grace. Many years ago. My cousin could have given that to any girl, Ricardo said sharply. A foolish infatuation dressed as noble trust. Lorenzo stood. Enough, he said, his voice quiet, but edged. You will not speak of her, as if she is a trinket I toss aside. If I had wished for secrets, I would have hidden her. Instead, I bring her here into this room to speak before you all. Does that look like some cheap amusement? You ask us to accept that your attachment to a waitress proves your good judgment, Ricardo countered. I ask you to see what it truly proves, Lorenzo replied. That when I feared for my life and my inheritance, I did not run to flatterers or sycophants. I looked to someone who had nothing to gain but a handful of coins and a great deal to lose. I chose honesty over convenience. If that is folly, then perhaps this house needs more of it. He turned to the presiding lawyer. Judge me on my decisions with land, with money, with people, he said. Look at what I have done and at what my cousin has planned. But do not insult this woman to injure me. I will not allow it. His voice did not rise, but it carried. Rafaela felt something unclench in her chest. For the first time he stood between her and their words, not behind them. The presiding lawyer set the ring down carefully. I have heard enough, he said, unless anyone has something of substance to add. A few of the older men shook their heads. One cleared his throat. I have dealt with the Duke in business, he said. He has made errors, as any man does, but I have not found him careless with contracts or money. Another spoke. I have heard the gossip about his walks in poor streets, he said. I confess I thought it foolish. Now I see there was more purpose in it than I imagined. The lawyer nodded slowly. Here is my view, he said at last. The concerns raised about the Duke's conduct appear to be exaggerated and, in some instances, deliberately colored to suit other interests. The documents we have seen suggest that certain parties, his eyes flicked to Ricardo, have been more eager to shift control than to ensure the estate's true welfare. I see no sufficient reason to declare the Duke of Bardi unfit to manage his inheritance. Ricardo opened his mouth, but the lawyer held up a hand. As for the young woman, he added, Signorina Conti has shown courage in coming here. She has no apparent reason to lie and every reason to avoid this attention. Her testimony supports the Duke's account and contradicts the more scandalous whispers. I recommend that her name not be used further in any attempt to damage his reputation. Doing so would be both unjust and frankly tiresome. A few polite, dry smiles appeared around the table. Ricardo sat back, his expression tight. This is not finished, he said under his breath. It is finished enough for today, the lawyer replied. The estate remains under the Duke's authority. Any further attempts to challenge that authority should be made openly, not through private tales. The formalities closed. Papers were signed. Voices rose in small clusters. Rafaela felt suddenly light and hollow at once. The tension that had held her upright began to slip away. Lorenzo stepped to her side. You were remarkable, he said quietly. Thank you. I only told the truth, she said, her voice a little hoarse. Truth is rarely only anything, he replied. The presiding lawyer came over and handed her the ring. This belongs with you, he said. For now, at least. Thank you, she said. He smiled. If anyone ever tells you that your voice is small, he said, remember today. Then he turned away to speak with another man. Rafaela looked at the ring in her palm. It gleamed like a tiny sun. You should take it back, she said to Lorenzo. You need it now. To remember who you are meant to be. I remember, he said softly. Because you are holding it. Keep it a little longer. They left the building together, just as they had entered. Outside, the air tasted fresher. At the carriage, he turned to her. Come, he said, I will see you home. There is no need, she replied. You have done enough. It is not duty, he said. It is wish. She hesitated, then nodded. Inside the carriage, the world shrank to the space between them. He sat opposite her, hands resting on his knees. You will not be entirely rid of gossip, he said. I am sorry. I did not do this to be rid of it, she answered. I did it so that when they talk, I know I spoke my part. He smiled slightly. You did, he said, more clearly than many who have spoken in that room before. When they reached her building, he stepped down first and offered his hand to help her out. His fingers closed around hers, firm and warm. May I come up? He asked. To tell your mother how it went. She will scold me if I say no, Rafaela replied. They climbed the stairs together. At the door, she called softly, and her mother's voice answered. Her mother listened as they recounted the counsel, the questions, the arguments, the decision. So they looked at you as if you were dirt, her mother said to Rafaela, And you left with your head above their eyebrows. Good, Lorenzo laughed. That is an accurate picture, he said. And you? Her mother asked, turning to him. Did you stand as you promised? I tried, he said. She stood better. Her mother nodded, satisfied. They stayed for a short while. When Lorenzo rose to leave, Raffaella walked him to the door. Will you be all right? He asked. If anyone comes asking questions again, I will tell them I already answered them in the only room that mattered, she said. He looked at her for a long moment. I have business to arrange, he said. House matters, changes, after that I will come. To the trattoria, she asked. To wherever you are, he replied. She watched him go down the stairs, her heart beating in an unfamiliar rhythm. Days passed. Word spread as it always did. At the trattoria, men spoke of the council in vague terms, each pretending to know more than he did. I heard the Duke nearly lost everything, one said. I heard he silenced them with one look, another replied. I heard a girl from this very place went there to speak, the kitchen boy said proudly, glancing at Raffaella. Bellini snorted. If anyone asks, she is mine, he said. I will hang a sign, Trattoria Bellini, where even the waitresses argue with counts. Raffaella laughed and shook her head. The days returned to a rhythm. Soup, bread, wine. She worked, she went home, she checked on her mother, who seemed a little stronger with each passing week, thanks to the regular medicine. But Lorenzo did not come. Not the first day, not the second, not the third. He is busy, her mother said when she mentioned it, trying to sound casual. Paper mountains do not climb themselves. I know, Raffaella said. He has much to organize. Still, something inside her tightened. The old doubts whispered, he is a duke. You are a waitress. You have done what he needed. Now he returns to where he belongs. On the fifth day, a group of young men entered the trattoria, laughing loudly. Among them was a familiar face, the merchant who liked to whisper rumors. Did you hear? He said, dropping onto a chair. The Duke kept his estate. The council did not dare take it. Of course they did not, his friend replied. He is stubborn. And I heard, the merchant added, lowering his voice a little, though not enough, that he had a little helper, a girl. Some say he intends to give her a reward. His smile was suggestive. Raffaella set down the bread harder than she meant to. One word more, she said calmly, and I will pour your wine over your head instead of in your cup. The men laughed, not sure whether she was joking. The door opened again. Wind swept in, followed by footsteps she recognized before she turned. Lorenzo stood there. He looked different. Not in his clothes, but in the way he held himself. There was a lightness in his eyes, as if some weight had finally slid from his shoulders. The room hushed, then buzzed softly. Your Grace, Bellini said, hurrying over. Welcome. Your table is already waiting, I know, Lorenzo said with a small smile. Thank you, Signor Bellini. His gaze moved straight to Raffaella. Good evening, he said. Good evening, Your Grace, she replied, trying to keep her voice neutral. He took his usual corner table. The men who had been gossiping watched with greedy interest. Raffaella approached with a jug of water. What will you have? She asked. Whatever you bring, he said. If you have chicken, chicken. If you have stew, stew. I came for something else. Bellini called toward the kitchen. Chicken for the Duke, he shouted. And do not burn it. Today we serve with crown and all. As the food was prepared, the ordinary noise returned in small bursts. Raffaella set a plate before Lorenzo, then stepped back. He ate a little, but his eyes kept drifting toward the room, measuring how many were watching. Most of them. When he finished, he placed coins on the table. Raffaella noticed there were more than usual. A fair tip this time, generous even. She almost smiled. She went to clear his plate. As she lifted it, her breath caught. There in the center of the table lay another folded piece of paper. For a moment, the trattoria blurred. The first night rushed back. No tip, cold eyes, hidden note. This time, his glance toward her held quiet warmth. She slid the paper under her cloth and carried the plate away. In the pantry, she closed the door most of the way and leaned against the sacks of flour. Her hands unfolded the paper. It contained only one sentence. Will you meet me by the river when your work ends? No signature, no initials, none needed. She folded it again, pressed it to her lips for a second. She hoped no one saw. then tucked it into her bodice and returned to the room. Lorenzo was standing. "Thank you," he said aloud for all to hear. "The food was excellent, as always." "It is the same soup as ever," Bellini said proudly. "Then it is my taste that has improved," Lorenzo replied. He nodded to Raffaella, just a respectful inclination, then left. The hours until closing felt longer than any she had ever worked. She moved quickly, finished every task before Bellini could ask. "You are in a hurry," he observed. "Have you grown tired of my charming face?" "I promised my mother I would not be late," she said. Which was true. She simply did not say where she would be late from. At last, the last table emptied. The chairs went upside down. The floor was swept. "Go," Bellini said, waving her toward the door. "You look like a bird that sees the sky through a keyhole." She almost kissed his cheek for that. Outside, the night air was cool, but not harsh. She walked quickly toward the river, her heart pounding in an eager, fearful rhythm. The Arno moved quietly under the bridge, dark and steady. Lanterns threw soft light over the water. A few couples strolled along the bank, talking in low voices. He stood near the low wall, hands resting on the stone, looking out at the current. When he heard her footsteps, he turned. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. "You came," he said. "You asked," she replied. He stepped closer, not too close, but nearer than any nobleman would stand to a waitress in the eyes of society. "I did not come sooner," he said. "You may have thought I forgot. I did not." "I thought you were drowning in papers," she said lightly. "Or celebrations." "There were papers," he said, "and a few forced dinners. People who ignored me last month now fall over themselves to call me wise. It is tiring. And yet here you are," she said, "by the river, with a girl who carries soup." "With the woman who saved my name," he corrected gently. "And more than that," she swallowed. "What more?" she asked. He searched her face, as if choosing his words carefully. "Before I met you," he said, "I thought I understood fear. I thought I knew what it meant to stand alone. I lived behind walls made of pride. They kept others out, they kept me in." "You still wear that pride," she said softly. "Yes," he agreed. "But it is thinner now. You cracked it, with questions, with the way you looked at me when I left no coin, with the way you held my secrets when you had every reason to throw them back at me." "I thought about it," she admitted. "I know," he said. "That is what makes your choice worth something." He took a breath. "Raffaella," he said, and hearing her name in his mouth sent a small shiver through her. "You have been my witness. Now I ask if you will be something more." "More," she whispered. "My partner," he said simply. "Not in papers. In life." She stared at him, unsure she had heard correctly. You are the Duke of Bardi," she said. "You have houses, lands, relatives who already think you mad for trusting a trattoria girl with your letters. You could marry a marchesa's niece, or a princess, or someone whose name opens doors instead of making servants frown. Why would you ask this of me?" He stepped a little closer. The lantern light touched his face, softening the angles. "Because I have had enough of doors that open to rooms where no one speaks the truth," he said. "Because when I was at my lowest, no marchesa sat with my fears. You did, because you see me as a man first, and a duke second. And because somewhere between that first cold dinner and today, I began to wake each morning wondering what you would say about the day." Her eyes burned. "You barely looked at me that first night," she said. "I was a fool," he replied. "I saw only my own worries. I did not see the woman lifting my plate. I do now, and I do not wish to spend the rest of my life pretending I do not." He reached out very slowly and took her hand. His fingers were firm, but there was a tremor in them. "I cannot promise you an easy life," he said. "Some will whisper, some will sneer, some will pretend to be kind and fail. But I can promise this: I will never be ashamed to stand beside you. In my house, in any street. I will not hide you in shadow. I will not call you only anything." A tear slipped down her cheek. He caught it with his thumb, the touch light and reverent. "You should know," she said, her voice thick, "that I did not help you for this." "I know," he said. "That is one reason I ask." She laughed a little through the tears. "You have a way of putting burdens on my shoulders," she said. "First your letters, now your future. Share it with me," he said. "It will be lighter than carrying mine and yours apart." She looked at him, at the man he was now, still proud, still flawed, but changed. Softer at the edges, truer in the center. "Will you ask my mother?" she said suddenly. He blinked. "Yes," he replied at once. "If you say yes, I will ask her blessing. If you say no, I will still go and thank her for lending me her daughter's courage." "You are too quick with words," she said. "I can barely keep up." "I have had many years of practice," he said, "and yet none of them prepared me for this moment." He dropped to one knee, not with the polished grace of a man in a ballroom, but with the earnest awkwardness of someone doing something that mattered. People on the path turned to look. A murmur rose. Rafaela felt her heart beat so loudly, she wondered if everyone could hear it. He took her hand in both of his. "Rafaela Conti," he said, clear and calm. "Will you marry me? Will you share my name, my house, my stubbornness, my fears, my laughter? Will you stand at my side not as my secret but as my equal in all that matters?" She saw her future in a blur. Whispers, shocked faces, trouble, but also her mother in a better bed, the trattoria boy boasting that he had trained a duchess. Florence spread at her feet in a way she had never imagined. Above all, she saw this man in front of her, on his knee on a public path, asking a girl from a narrow stair to step into his storms and his sunlight. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking and strong at once. "Yes, I will." He let out a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for months. He rose and drew her closer, one hand at her waist, the other still holding hers. He did not kiss her like a man claiming a prize. He kissed her like a man who had found home in the last place he expected. There was nothing hurried or hidden in it. It was gentle at first, then deepened with all the feelings they had kept behind words. Her fingers curled in his coat. The world narrowed to the warmth of his mouth, the steady strength of his arms, the quiet certainty that this, at last, was something true. When they parted, people along the path clapped softly. Some smiled. A few shook their heads. One woman dabbed at her eyes. Rafaela laughed, breathless. "You have started the gossip yourself," she said. "Let them talk," he replied. "For once, let the story they tell be the right one." The wedding was not the grandest Florence had seen. There were no endless carriages, no foreign guests, but the church was filled with faces that mattered. Bellini, in an uncomfortable suit, wept openly. "That is my girl," he told anyone who would listen. "She used to serve soup. Now she will serve titles." The kitchen boy puffed his chest like a guard. Her mother, in a new dress Lorenzo had insisted upon, sat in the front pew, a handkerchief in her hand and joy in her eyes. "You walk straight," she whispered when she hugged Rafaela before the ceremony. "Do not look at their jewels. Look at his face." "I will," Rafaela promised. Lorenzo waited at the altar, not in extravagant finery, but in a suit that matched his first at the council. His gaze never left her as she walked down the aisle. When the priest asked if anyone objected, a silence fell. Even those who disapproved did not dare speak. The House of Bardi had made its choice clear by standing in the pews, some stiff with discomfort, some beginning to soften. Lorenzo and Rafaela spoke their vows in voices that did not tremble, hands clasped, eyes open, no secrets between them now. Afterward, outside the church, children threw petals. The city watched. Later, in the quiet of their new home, Lorenzo led her to a balcony that overlooked the rooftops of Florence. "This is ours," he said softly. "Not just the view, the life beyond it." She stood beside him, her hand in his. "And the trattoria," she teased. "Shall we never eat there again?" "On the contrary," he said. "We will go often. I owe Bellini more coins, and I owe that little table in the corner a visit. It started all this." She laughed. "You did not tip that first night," she reminded him. "I left something better than a coin," he said, turning to kiss her forehead. "I left a note, and you found me inside it." Their lives did not become perfect. There were still days of difficulty, disagreements, and the quiet work of weaving two worlds together. But each night, when they sat at the same table, sometimes in a grand hall, sometimes in a small kitchen, they did so as equals, bound not by convenience, but by choice. Years later, when people told the story of the Duke of Bardi and his Duchess, they spoke of danger, of counsels, of scandal turned into strength. They spoke of a note hidden under a plate, and a girl who chose to read it and answer it. And whenever someone asked Rafaela if she ever regretted lifting that first dish, she would smile, look at the man who still watched her, as if she were the first honest thing he had ever seen, and say, "No, because that was the moment my life began to belong to me." Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.